And after the utter farce in the Commons yesterday, Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle today stood firm in the face of calls for him to resign despite a mounting list of MPs backing a motion of no confidence in him. So this was the moment that Sir Lindsay explained why he scuppered the Gaza ceasefire debate, insisting he did it to protect MPs from extremists who would have targeted Labour MPs.
I had serious meetings yesterday with the police on the issues and threats to politicians, threats heading to an election. And I do not want anything to happen again. So yes, I will apologise. I always will when I make a mistake.
Yes, not just Labour MPs, all MPs. Anyway, whether Hoyle behaved like he did because he wanted to save Sir Keir Starmer's bacon or because he genuinely feared for MPs' safety, either reality leaves our democracy in tatters. So tonight I am asking, as Sir Lindsay Hoyle caves to extremists over the Gaza ceasefire debate, is democracy dead? Doing battle on this now is political commentator, former MEP Patrick O'Flynn and former Labour spokesman James Matthewson. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Patrick, is democracy dead?
I would certainly say it's been moved to the high dependency ward of the Democratic Hospital. It's not in good shape whatsoever. I think, oddly enough, Lindsay Hoyle has broken Dennis Healey's rule of politics, which is when you're in a hole, stop digging, because as you suggested, he's come out with a new pretext now for why he made this ruling, the security and the police warnings, and that will make people think, hang on a minute, Margaret Thatcher was almost murdered by the IRA. The very next morning, she stood up at the Conservative Party conference and said business as usual. You know, in Britain, we don't kowtow to threats because that incentivises further threats. And under Lindsay Hoyle's own explanation, that's what he's done. And I think also the leader of the Labour Party, who aspires to be the next Prime Minister, almost certainly will be the next Prime Minister by the end of this year. I think, you know, he hasn't seen the wood for the trees here. He thinks, lean on the Speaker so I don't have headlines about the Labour Party split. But a bigger thing for the British public is, does this man have what it takes to lead our democracy? And he, again, under his own account of the Labour Party, it's kowtowing to terrorists, radicals and extremists. Right. And that's not what democracy is meant to be about.
James, come back to that.
Yeah, terrorists and radicals. I mean, I wanted Keir Starmer to back the position of a ceasefire. Keir Starmer's backed the position of a ceasefire. Does that make me a terrorist or a radical? Of course it doesn't. It's absolute nonsense to call people who want to see a ceasefire, which now is a huge amount of people in Parliament and out of Parliament who want to see a ceasefire, want that position to be adopted with actual, understandable policy positions and a route to peace where we don't see children on either side.
James, just out of interest, then, James, sorry, I'm going to put this back to you then. If you're applying that logic, then why was it so vital that the Labour amendment was mentioned yesterday? You could have just voted with the SNP.
Yeah, I believe that the Labour Party, will always contest and have the right as the bigger opposition party. And as, pointed out right there previously, that the Labour Party is going to be probably most likely forming the next government. It's the SNP who, a minority party, who were deciding to play politics with this. And let's be honest how this planned out yesterday. It wasn't scuppered by Lindsay Hoyle in its entirety. It could have gone ahead. We could have seen democracy in action, and we'd be having the opposite conversation of what we're having now. But the SNP decided to be children about it and decided that if their name wasn't the successful name on the ceasefire amendment that went through, then they wouldn't be playing ball.
OK, Patrick?
Well, look, this phrase that Labour's trotting out with playing politics, it's actually doing politics. Like, all parties, quote, play politics when they test the robustness and scrutinise the other political parties. And both the SNP on one flank, the very much pro-Palestinian flank, and the Conservative government on the other, suspected that, Labour under scrutiny would fall apart here. So the official account, this is the key thing, the official account of why the procedures of the Commons were changed is because Labour MPs were getting threats. Now, that's the message, that our democracy doesn't stand up to terrorism. I see Keir Starmer as greatly culpable in this. He's denied that he personally uttered any kind of big threat or leaning on the Speaker. He didn't say that none of his MPs did that. I think, Lindsay Hoyle almost certainly should resign. But I think the bigger issue here is Keir Starmer fit to be Prime Minister of, one of the great democracies of the world? And I think he's proved himself unfit.
So, James, look, we're about to hear in a few minutes' time from an MP who says that fellow MPs are now not voting the way that they want to vote on things because they are afraid of the mob. That is not democracy, is it?
No, but I don't believe it's true. I just don't believe it's true.
You don't think it's true?
Labour MPs who I've spoken to, I haven't spoken to a single MP who I know, several of whom I've spoken to today, who've said that they felt intimidated to a point where they would change their opinion on stuff. These aren't, who do you think these people are? These are people who face threats on a regular basis, such as the nature of our toxic debate around many things in politics, who face threats on a regular basis for their opinions and then regardless vote on them anyway. They're in Parliament because they have political opinions and a political conscience, and they stick with that normally regardless of this. To think that people are being pushed around back and forth. What's happened is we've had very successful protests, very successful outrage from across the country and across the world as well to what's happening to Palestinian people in Gaza.
Would you describe Mike Freer's office being allegedly firebombed as a successful protest, or what went on outside Tobias Elwood's
nothing to do with the
house, or some death threats that have been given? Because that's what I'm talking about.
Nothing to do with the legitimate protest. They're the disgusting threats that our elected officials face every single day, regardless of what the topic is.
So it is true that they are struggling to deal with the fact that
of course they're threatened, but I'm saying I don't believe that elected officials then say, oh, I must vote this way because of that, because I know so many who do just the opposite, and actually it hardens their resolve. And actually these disgusting threats, of violence against our MPs, two of whom we have lost their lives to those kind of threats, is the real threat to democracy, not peaceful protests that result in a wider discussion in the media that then ultimately results in people saying, you know what it is, actually we've seen enough children murdered and we don't want to see that anymore, so we want a ceasefire.
OK, Patrick, final word.
Yeah, I think the British people are watching this and they're remembering there's a school teacher from Batley who's had to be in hiding for 3 years. There was an autistic boy in a school near Wakefield whose mother basically had to go and beg for no fatwa to be imposed on him. And the idea that the political class, who should be leading the defence of our democracy, is somehow going to be feather-bedded and protected in ways that normal people are not. Normal people have to face the society that our political class has presided over and created. I think that is a very, very troubling message for our democracy, and I think Lindsay Hoyle and Keir Starmer have come out of this week not looking, equal to the tasks that they aspire to fill.
All right, look, both of you, I think, fought your case valiantly there, so thank you very, very much. So, as former MEP Patrick O'Flynn and former Labour spokesman James Mathewson, so who do you agree with this? Sir Lindsay Hoyle caves to extremists over the Gaza ceasefire debate. Is democracy dead? Nonna on X says democracy's been dead for a long time now. It's time we accept it. It's a bit defeatist, that Nonna, I think. Gudrun on X says democracy isn't dead yet. We just need real politicians with a moral compass and courage who really know what democracy means and who are committed to serving the people of this once great nation. Jan says, we don't really have democracy. If we did, the boats would be stopped, we'd be out of the ECHR and Brexit would be complete. Look, your verdict is in. 90% of you agree that democracy is now dead after Sir Lindsay Hoyle caved to extremists over Gaza. 10% of you disagree and say that it isn't.